Hello, brothers, and welcome to Sigma Old Man Channel. The most silent man in the room isn't unaware. He's just already 3 steps into a scenario you haven't realized exists yet. Most people think a Sigma male is unbothered, unshakable, cold steel wrapped in calm. But here's the part no one talks about. Even the most composed minds feel threatened sometimes. And when that happens, it's not chaos. It's chess with no clock and no mercy. A 2022 psychological study found that individuals with high autonomy and low social conformity respond to threat not with emotion, but with calculation, detachment, and micro-strategies that others completely miss. Sound familiar? So no, he doesn't explode, he doesn't beg. And he definitely doesn't start throwing furniture like a reality TV star on a caffeine overdose. Instead, he rewrites the entire playbook and removes your name from it, quietly, efficiently, permanently. In this video, we're diving deep, not into how Sigma males react, but how they evolve when they feel threatened. What you're about to hear isn't taught in any psychology class. And it definitely doesn't end with a motivational quote and a group hug. Let's begin. Number 1, he begins to move in patterns. Only the highly perceptive can track. When a Sigma male feels threatened, he doesn't explode, chase validation, or try to prove anything to anyone. What he does instead is shift into a completely different mode of operation, one that most people will never detect until it's too late. His behavior becomes unpredictable, not because he's panicking, but because he's calculating. He starts to move in patterns that don't follow typical emotional logic, and that's exactly what throws people off. Most individuals, when they feel threatened, follow predictable responses. They lash out, defend themselves, explain, or retreat. But the Sigma does none of that. He doesn't give you what you expect. He becomes asymmetrical in his movements, emotionally and strategically. One day he's engaged, the next he's gone dark. One moment he seems unaffected. Later he'll respond with something so precise and untraceable, it's like he had a map of your weaknesses the whole time. It's not randomness. It's intentional disruption. He confuses predictable minds on purpose. If he always reacted the same way, people could exploit that. But now, you never know what version of him you're going to get, and that's what makes him terrifying. It's like playing chess with someone who occasionally switches to a game you don't even know the rules to. When the Sigma feels cornered or provoked, he stops being linear. He abandons step-by-step logic and starts using strategy that seems chaotic to others but makes perfect sense to him. This confuses manipulators, narcissists, and fragile egos who rely on patterns to control or dominate. They expect cause and effect. He gives them paradox and silence. And in this unpredictable rhythm, he becomes untouchable. People can't follow him, can't read him, and can't find the right angle to attack. Even if they think they've won, they're likely standing in a trap he set 5 moves ago. That's how he protects himself, not with brute force, but with psychological invisibility wrapped in unpredictability. He doesn't disappear, he just becomes untrackable. And by the time anyone realizes what he's doing, he's already rewritten the script and vanished from the scene, having already won. Number 2, he destroys the false sense of control. Others think they have over him. When a Sigma male feels someone trying to control him, emotionally, socially, or psychologically, he doesn't argue, explain, or defend. He simply withdraws. But not the kind of withdrawal most people recognize. This isn't ghosting or sulking. This is a strategic dismantling of the false sense of power you thought you had over him. People often mistake the Sigma's calm tolerance for submission. They think because he listens, stays composed, or doesn't fight back, he's under their influence. But what they don't realize is that he's been measuring the weight of the connection, calculating its cost, and quietly deciding whether it deserves his energy at all. Once he sees that someone believes they have control over him, he initiates a psychological reset, and it starts with vanishing. This isn't retreat. It's not cowardice. It's precision warfare. And it's deeply unsettling. His silence isn't passive, it's confrontational. It forces people to confront a brutal truth. They never had control. They were simply allowed to believe they did for a while. And when he pulls away, there are no tantrums, no closure, no final warnings. Just a clean cut. No explanation needed. Because for the Sigma, explaining yourself to someone who tried to manipulate you is a waste of breath. The more someone chases, the further he fades. And the more they push for emotional leverage, the more powerless they feel in his absence. His detachment becomes the loudest statement. It screams, "You don't control me, you never did." And now you'll feel the void you mistook for ownership. That illusion you built where you thought you were in charge, it's gone, shattered, replaced by a silence that holds more weight than any confrontation ever could. Sigma males don't destroy you. They destroy the lie you believed, that you had influence. And when that illusion dies, it's not just painful, it's humiliating. Because now you're not just without him. You're without the control you never truly had. And you're left wondering how you lost something that was never really yours. Number 3, he questions his own programming, then updates it instantly. When a Sigma male feels threatened, he doesn't just look outward to assess the situation, he immediately turns inward. He begins scanning himself like a system analyst looking for bugs, outdated beliefs, emotional blind spots, or internal vulnerabilities that might be responsible for the threat. Most people respond to danger by blaming someone or something else. The Sigma, on the other hand, questions his own programming first. He asks himself, what did I miss? Where am I exposed? What weakness within me attracted this situation in the first place? This self-inquiry isn't emotional, it's surgical. He's not wallowing in self-doubt. He's not spiraling into insecurity, he's upgrading fast, like a machine learning algorithm that just hit a glitch and now needs to write better code. He doesn't resist change, he initiates it the moment pressure hits. And he does it without announcing it to the world. You won't see a dramatic transformation or a loud revelation. What you'll notice is a subtle but undeniable shift. A new boundary, a colder stare, a tighter operating system. The person who felt threatened yesterday is no longer the person standing in front of you today. That old version, deleted, replaced, gone. This is what makes the Sigma so hard to trap. He doesn't just evolve slowly over time, he adapts in real time. If he's manipulated, it happens once. If he's emotionally exposed, it happens once. The lesson is absorbed instantly, and the software running his mind rewrites itself on the spot. While most people get stuck in patterns, repeating the same emotional responses, clinging to the same beliefs, justifying the same toxic connections, the Sigma male is willing to burn his internal blueprint and redraw it from scratch if that's what survival or growth requires. He doesn't ask, why is this happening to me? He asks, what inside me needs to evolve so this never happens again? Threat for him is not a signal to fight or flee. It's a signal to upgrade. It's a mirror that forces radical self-inspection, and unlike most, he doesn't flinch when facing his flaws. He edits them, and once he's done, the version of him that emerges is smarter, colder, more precise, and entirely immune to the same threat that tried to break him. Number 4. He triggers your insecurities by standing in unshakable stillness. When a Sigma male feels threatened, he doesn't flail, raise his voice, or try to out-argue anyone. He does something far more unnerving. He becomes completely still, emotionally still, physically still, psychologically unreadable. It's not indifference, it's control, a level of self-mastery that feels unnatural to those who live off emotional reactions. Most people thrive on feedback. They poke, push, manipulate, and provoke to get a reaction, to confirm they still have influence. But the Sigma gives them nothing. No sigh, no eye roll, no twitch. He simply holds his ground with a calm so steady it becomes threatening in itself. This kind of stillness acts like a mirror. It reflects every insecurity, every hidden motive, every fear the other person is trying to hide. Without even trying, he reveals their chaos. The silence forces people to sit in their own noise. And that's where the unraveling begins. You see, when someone is used to controlling the emotional tempo of a room, the Sigma's refusal to engage destabilizes them. He doesn't speed up when they pressure him. He doesn't soften when they cry. He doesn't flinch when they attack. He simply is, unbothered, present, anchored. And that presence creates discomfort because now there's nowhere for the other person to hide. They start to question themselves. Why isn't he reacting? Why doesn't he care? Am I invisible, powerless, irrelevant? The silence forces self-reflection, but not the comforting kind, the kind that stings, the kind that makes people doubt their value, their impact, even their identity. Ironically, this stillness isn't even meant to be a weapon. The Sigma isn't using it to destroy anyone. It's just his natural reaction to pressure. Don't overreact, don't engage in the drama, don't leak energy, just stand. And that unshakable stance ends up doing more damage than any argument ever could. Because while everyone else is busy trying to be heard, the Sigma male is busy being untouchable. And the more you try to shake him, the more your own instability becomes obvious. In the end, you're the only one flinching, and he's still just still. When a Sigma male decides it's time to leave, whether it's a relationship, a group, or an entire environment, he doesn't storm out, he doesn't explain, he doesn't try to negotiate closure or get emotional about it. He just leaves, but not in a way that feels like absence. In a way that feels like something sacred and brutal was ripped out of your reality. His exit is clean, cold, and total. No breadcrumbs, no subtle signs that he might return. It's as if he was never there at all. And that's what makes it so disturbing, because one day you're interacting with him, counting on his presence, orbiting around his calm energy, and the next day he's gone, not hiding, not waiting for a reaction, gone. But here's the part that really unsettles people. He leaves a psychological void behind, not just because of what he was, but because of what he refused to become. He never gave too much, he never chased, he never begged. And in a world full of emotional chaos, his presence felt like rare air. So when he disappears, that emotional oxygen vanishes too, and you feel it. It's not just the absence of a person, it's the death of a false reality. The Sigma doesn't leave just to protect himself. He leaves in a way that forces you to confront exactly what you were doing wrong. He becomes the silence that echoes every mistake back to you, every manipulation, every lie, every power game you thought you were winning. And the worst part, you don't get to process it with him. He's not around for the drama, the begging, or the guilt. He doesn't give you the satisfaction of one final conversation. You're left with the aftermath, alone, the same way he probably felt when he realized staying was costing him his peace. His exit isn't a goodbye, it's a reset of your entire perception. You start questioning who you were around him, what version of yourself he saw, and why his absence feels louder than most people's presence. That's why when a Sigma leaves, it doesn't feel like someone just walked out. It feels like something was exercised, and now you're stuck living with the ghost of what he didn't say. Number 5, he begins treating you like a case study, not a human. When a Sigma male feels threatened or betrayed, there's a cold shift that happens behind his eyes. Subtle, quiet, but absolute. He stops relating to you as a person and starts analyzing you as a problem. Whatever emotional connection once existed, disconnected. At this point, you're no longer someone he's trying to understand or connect with. You're a case study, a pattern to dissect, a behavior model to observe and eventually predict. He stops asking, why did they do this? And starts thinking, what internal structure drives this behavior? Your words become input. Your reactions become data points. He's no longer emotionally invested, he's intellectually engaged. It's not personal, it's mechanical, clinical, detached. And for people used to manipulating emotions or feeding off chaos, this transition is terrifying. This is where empathy shuts down, not out of cruelty, but because he doesn't see the utility in it anymore. Empathy is reserved for those he respects. The moment you cross a certain line, you lose access to that version of him, and what replaces it is something unnervingly precise. He studies your tells, your contradictions, the gap between what you say and what you actually do. Nothing is taken at face value anymore. And here's what makes it unsettling. You won't know it's happening. He'll nod, he'll respond, he might even appear normal. But underneath, he's building a psychological blueprint of who you are, how you function, and where your structure will inevitably fail. You become a project, not a person. He uses your behavior against itself. He predicts your next move before you make it. He doesn't confront you directly, he outmaneuvers you silently. By the time you realize he's 10 steps ahead, he's already drawing conclusions and rewriting the terms of your relationship without consulting you. What's left is a dynamic that feels cold, confusing, and strangely one-sided. You'll feel something is off, but you won't know what. That's because he's already stopped engaging with you emotionally, and now he's running simulations, figuring out exactly when and how to either neutralize you, distance himself permanently, or dismantle your influence altogether. This isn't revenge, it's resolution. And it ends when he's learned enough to ensure he'll never be vulnerable to your kind again. Number 6, he rewrites his strategy with surgical precision. When a Sigma male feels threatened, he doesn't jump into defense mode like most people. He doesn't scramble to protect his pride, prove a point, or control the narrative. Instead, he goes quiet, but not out of fear. That silence means he's analyzing, deeply, precisely, almost inhumanly calm. While others react with emotion, he responds with diagnosis. He breaks down the situation like a surgeon studying a patient before an operation. What went wrong? What weakness was exposed? Was it emotional, tactical, situational? He doesn't flinch while doing this. There's no panic, no self-pity, just cold, methodical inspection. His ego isn't in the way. That's what sets him apart. Where most people try to defend themselves from feeling small, the Sigma leans into discomfort just long enough to extract information from it. Pain becomes data. Threat becomes feedback. And from that feedback, he starts rewriting his strategy. This isn't about revenge or emotional comeback. It's about upgrading his system. He recalibrates his decisions, his habits, his social boundaries, even his emotional responses. Nothing is off limits. If something within him allowed the threat to land, he reprograms it. If someone exploited a blind spot, he patches it. And he does it fast. No drama, no announcement. It's not flashy. In fact, it's almost invisible. But it's lethal in its effectiveness. The person who made him feel vulnerable expects a reaction, maybe anger, maybe insecurity, maybe a power struggle, but the Sigma doesn't play that game. He simply becomes more precise, more controlled, and less accessible. That recalibration can look like distance, or sudden silence, or an unexpected shift in how he communicates. But underneath, he's laying down a new psychological blueprint that prevents the same situation from happening again. What once triggered him no longer does. What once got a response now gets nothing. This is why trying to manipulate or control a Sigma never works long term. He evolves too quickly. He doesn't return to old patterns. He rewrites them. And by the time you realize the rules have changed, he's already operating on a completely different level, one where you no longer have access to the controls. Number 7, he hijacks the energy in the room without saying a word. When a Sigma male walks into a room, especially when he feels threatened or challenged, he doesn't try to take control in the usual ways. He doesn't compete for attention. He doesn't posture or perform. He doesn't need to. What he does is far more unsettling. He shifts the energy without saying a word. It's not loud, it's not theatrical. It's felt, not seen. The atmosphere subtly changes. Conversations slow down. People start to glance in his direction without realizing why. It's not because he's trying to be mysterious, it's because he carries a presence that forces others to recalibrate. His body language is precise, his facial expression gives away nothing. His silence is deliberate, not awkward. It is in that silence that people begin to feel either exposed or invisible. Some shrink, others overcompensate, but very few remain unaffected. That's because the Sigma isn't trying to be the center. He becomes the gravitational pull in the room by simply holding his space with unapologetic calm. People who thrive on performance, drama, or constant validation begin to feel out of sync. His refusal to engage in surface-level games disturbs the social equilibrium. The rules they're used to, talk loud, take space, impress, suddenly don't work. They're playing music, but he's not dancing. And that stillness makes them feel unstable. Others who are more grounded or self-aware might feel seen in his presence, but not in a comforting way, in a raw, unfiltered way. His gaze feels like an X-ray. His energy cuts through masks. You start wondering if he sees parts of you that you hide even from yourself. That kind of presence doesn't comfort, it confronts. And the most unnerving part? He's not doing it on purpose. This is his natural state when he feels challenged, calm, observant, and completely centered. While others escalate, he grounds, and that contrast creates discomfort. His calmness makes other people's noise feel pointless. His stillness makes others feel exposed. He doesn't need to dominate the space. He becomes the space. And once he does, the room starts reacting to him, whether they like it or not. That's how a Sigma hijacks the energy, not by speaking, but by being. Number 8, he stores the slight in a long-term mental vault. When a Sigma male feels disrespected, underestimated, or betrayed, he doesn't lash out in the moment. He doesn't raise his voice or demand apologies. He may even seem unaffected. But that's the first mistake people make with him, thinking silence equals indifference. What you don't realize is that while you move on, he's filing the moment away into a part of his mind that never forgets. He doesn't store it with bitterness. He stores it with precision. It's not an emotional wound, it's data. He remembers exactly what was said, how it was said, and more importantly, what it revealed about you. To him, slights are not isolated incidents. They are indicators. Clues about who can be trusted, who needs to be distanced, and who will eventually be cut off without warning. Sigmas don't do emotional outbursts. They don't feel the need to defend themselves with words. What they do instead is play the long game. They become colder, sharper, less accessible, and most dangerously more focused. Your insult doesn't break him. It becomes fuel, quiet, invisible fuel that powers his next move. When the time comes to respond, it won't look like revenge. It will look like success. You won't see rage, you'll see evolution. He may outgrow you, outperform you, or simply disappear from your life without a trace. You'll think he forgot. But he didn't. He just transformed the slight into leverage. And for those who push too far, who manipulate, exploit, or underestimate him one too many times, his silence becomes punishment, not out of spite, but out of clarity. He doesn't believe in teaching lessons. He believes in removing himself from the equation so that your actions collapse on their own. That's why Sigma males are dangerous when they're quiet. Because while you're brushing off the damage you caused, he's already written the consequences. He won't come for you. He'll become someone you'll never have access to again. And in the end, that distance, that absence, that cold invisibility, that will haunt longer than any argument ever could. It's not loud, it's not public, it's just permanent. Number 9, he becomes intolerant to small talk niceties or masked intentions. When a Sigma male feels threatened, something inside him snaps, but not in the way most people expect. He doesn't become aggressive or loud, he becomes honest. So honest it cuts, the polite filters, the fake smiles, the social niceties gone, completely stripped away. What's left is pure, unfiltered clarity, and it makes people uncomfortable fast. Normally the Sigma knows how to play along. He can nod through small talk, let others perform, and smile through surface-level conversations. But when he senses threat, whether it's manipulation, disrespect, or dishonesty, he immediately drops the script. He no longer sees the value in maintaining social comfort if it means compromising truth. This is when he starts speaking in razor-sharp clarity. No sugarcoating, no polite detours, just direct statements that leave no room for pretending. If you're fake, he'll make you feel it. If your intentions are hidden, he'll expose them with a single sentence. If you're expecting him to keep things light just to maintain the peace, prepare to be disappointed. He stops engaging in conversations that don't matter. He no longer entertains shallow interactions or meaningless praise. Compliments without substance, he ignores them. Jokes that hide passive aggression, he calls them out. Manipulative kindness, he slices through it with brutal awareness. What's even more unnerving is that he doesn't raise his voice. He stays calm, composed, and absolutely precise. That emotional neutrality makes his honesty hit even harder. There's no anger to blame, no tone to critique, just truth, cold, raw, and exact. And for most people, that's too much, because they're used to others pretending, softening blows, and playing along with the unspoken rules of social interaction. But the Sigma, once provoked, no longer feels the need to protect anyone's comfort. He's not being rude, he's being real. And that level of realness exposes everyone who isn't. People begin to avoid him. Not because he's mean, but because he becomes a mirror they're not ready to face. In a world addicted to masks, his refusal to wear one becomes almost violent in its effect. He doesn't argue, he just tells the truth, and then watches what breaks under the weight of it. Number 10, he identifies the hidden war you're waging and turns it inside out. When a Sigma male feels threatened, he doesn't just listen to what you say, he watches why you're saying it. He doesn't get caught up in surface-level disagreements, tone, or theatrics. While you argue about one thing, he's dissecting the real game underneath. He's not interested in the fight you're trying to pick. He's interested in the war you don't even realize you're waging. You may think you're challenging his opinion, testing his boundaries, or asserting yourself. But he's already peeled back the layers and spotted the insecurity driving your actions, the attempt to dominate, the need for control, the fear of being insignificant. He sees it all, and once he does, the conversation isn't about the original topic anymore. It becomes a psychological battlefield, and he controls the terrain. He doesn't meet you where you expect. Instead, he turns the entire confrontation inside out. You say something to provoke him, and instead of reacting, he asks a calm, surgical question that exposes the motive behind your words. Suddenly, you're not talking about him anymore, you're defending yourself. The spotlight shifts, the pressure reverses. This is where things get uncomfortable, because the Sigma doesn't play emotional games, he unmasks them. He'll call out the passive aggression you tried to hide with humor. He'll expose the manipulation wrapped in your concern. And he'll do it without raising his voice or showing anger. That neutrality, it cuts deeper than rage ever could. By the end of the exchange, you're no longer sure what you were even arguing about. All you know is that you feel seen in a way that's unsettling. He didn't just beat you in the conversation, he decoded your entire strategy. That strategy you weren't even consciously aware of. And the most disarming part, he doesn't shame you for it, he just lays it bare, which is worse. Because now you have to sit with the truth, not about him, but about yourself. That's the Sigma's weapon, not brute strength, not dominance. But clarity so sharp it becomes confrontation. He doesn't win the argument. He rewrites what the argument was ever about. And by the time you realize it, you're not in control of the conversation, you're unraveling under it. Number 11, he resets the social hierarchy without announcing it. When a Sigma male feels threatened, he doesn't challenge the so-called leader head on. He doesn't care about being the loudest, the most liked, or even the most visible. He knows real power doesn't come from status, it comes from presence. And when the environment starts feeling competitive or territorial, the Sigma doesn't play along. He reshapes the entire game. He doesn't walk into the room trying to outshine the alpha. He simply ignores the hierarchy that others are desperately clinging to. While everyone else is measuring dominance by titles, followers, loudness, or attention, the Sigma is busy radiating a self-contained confidence that doesn't need validation. And that is what disrupts everything. He doesn't ask to be followed. He doesn't demand respect. He becomes the one everyone starts watching, without understanding why. The so-called leaders start to notice it. Their jokes don't land the same. Their control starts slipping. People begin shifting their energy toward the Sigma, not because he's trying to steal the spotlight, but because he makes the spotlight feel irrelevant. He strips dominance of its ego, he removes status from performance, and suddenly people feel that real power isn't loud. It's still. It's not about being seen, it's about being felt. And when the Sigma becomes the quiet center of gravity in a room full of noise, the hierarchy collapses, not with a fight, not with a speech, but with a shift so subtle it's undeniable. The ones who built their identity on dominance get nervous, because power built on attention crumbles the moment someone shows up who doesn't need it. That's how the Sigma resets the social order, not by rising to the top, but by making the top meaningless. Number 12. He detaches from the game you're playing and starts building the board. When the Sigma male feels threatened, he doesn't scramble for position, approval, or control. He steps back, not to retreat, but to disconnect. From the ego-driven game, others are obsessed with winning. He sees the social dynamics, the power plays, the manipulations, and he simply opts out. But don't mistake that detachment for passivity. That's the exact moment he begins designing a new game entirely. One where he sets the terms, builds the structure, and chooses the stakes. He doesn't waste time trying to win on someone else's board. He doesn't care about the imaginary crown someone else is clutching. While others are busy fighting over scraps of relevance, he's in the shadows crafting a system where those battles no longer matter. And when he reappears, everything has changed. What once gave others power is now irrelevant. The metrics are different, the expectations are new, and worst of all, for them, he owns the terrain. This is the Sigma's quiet genius. He knows that true dominance isn't about playing better. It's about creating a game so uniquely yours that everyone else is disoriented just trying to keep up. They try to use old tactics. He's already 2 frameworks ahead. They try to bait him into conflict. He's building the next phase of the blueprint while they're stuck in emotional reactions. By the time they realize what's happening, they're no longer competing with him. They're surviving inside the world he architected. Their tricks don't work. Their status doesn't matter. Because he's not part of their hierarchy anymore. He's rewritten the system from the outside in, and now they're playing roles in his ecosystem. That's not rebellion, that's redesign. And it's terrifying to anyone who thought they were in control. Because while they were playing checkers, he wasn't just playing chess, he built the board. When a Sigma male feels threatened, he doesn't fall apart. He becomes sharper, colder, and more precise. He doesn't lash out or seek approval. He observes, calculates, and evolves in real time. Every move he makes under pressure is deliberate. Every silence is a statement. Every retreat is a repositioning. While others fight for control, he rewrites the very structure of the battlefield. He doesn't aim to dominate through ego. He dominates through detachment. He doesn't react emotionally. He upgrades his psychological defenses. He doesn't expose weakness. He identifies yours and quietly prepares his exit, his comeback, or your irrelevance. The Sigma male turns threat into transformation. And by the time you realize the game has changed, you're playing by rules he never had to say out loud. That's not luck. That's design. So next time you think he's silent, distant, or unaffected, you look closer. He's not disappearing. He's redesigning the world you thought you controlled, and when he's done, you'll be orbiting around him. If this video hit deeper than expected, it's because truth doesn't knock. It breaks in. So if you're someone who values raw, unfiltered insight into the rarest minds on the planet, don't just watch and vanish. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a drop of content that actually respects your intelligence. Like the video if it shook something awake in you. Comment below. Let's hear your thoughts, your experiences, or just your favorite line. And most importantly, share this with someone who still thinks quiet means weak. Because they need to understand silence isn't absence, it's strategy. Welcome to the channel where surface level dies and real power begins.